Welcome to the video. This video is more of a special to answer a thought that has been in my mind since watching the new Star Wars The Bad Batch episode on May the 4th. This entire thought chain is pretty niche, but it's definitely my niche. I will continue my normal schedule of Wednesdays around noon, but I really wanted to get this video out into the world quickly. In the future I will do other specials on topics that emerge on various shows as I deem fit. If you enjoy this video and would like to see more, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. This video is combining two things I have an interest in: pop culture media and historical military analysis. The question is, what would be the best style of Imperial Stormtroopers for the Galactic Empire from Star Wars, clones or conscripts? As many people have seen, the new Star Wars The Bad Batch season has just started, and in the first episode, Grand Moff Tarkin is assessing the clone army for viability for the Stormtrooper Corps for the Empire, and makes the comment that clone troops cost twice the amount of conscripted soldiers. However, history teaches us that conscripts are generally the cheapest type of soldier that you can get, especially for the Galactic Empire that seems to heavily recruit primarily infantry soldiers to police and control its vast galaxy-spanning territory. How is the Galactic Empire's military organized then? The Imperial military seems to have three main branches. First is the Imperial Navy, that seems, based on the Solo movies at least, to primarily recruit via volunteers first. The Navy operates similar to modern-day navies, projecting power through both their large ships and their space fighter craft. Next is the Imperial Army. As also seen in Solo, it seems to be massed light infantry made up of washed-out volunteers from other programs, as well as conscripts, and seems to rely on combined arms tactics such as armor and repulsor lift vehicle support. The third main branch is the Stormtrooper Corp, who are supposed to be elite shock troops who seem to be recruited from both volunteers and conscripted from the highest performing and most loyal candidates in the Empire's recruitment pool. While also relying on combined arms warfare for their ground battles, the Stormtrooper Corps also seems to fulfill a similar role to a modern-day Marine, providing elite shipboard security forces for the Imperial Navy alongside their naval trooper comrades. What purpose does the Stormtrooper Corps fulfill for the Empire then? In-universe, Stormtroopers seem to act as a mix of both elite shock troops and police or garrison forces. This makes sense given the scope and tyranny of the Galactic Empire, in that you would want to ensure that any dissent could and would be put down immediately. Having large numbers of elite forces present throughout the galaxy means that any localized hotspots can be immediately confronted, with even more forces sent in from nearby outposts or even further if required. This seems firmly rooted in the original Clone Wars era troop philosophy, though without the need to serve additionally as Navy crew and starfighter pilots that the clones also performed for the Republic. What are the major differences between a clone and a conscript then? The first major difference is in cost. Originally it was assumed clones were prohibitively expensive compared to their conscripted or volunteer counterparts, despite their elite nature and proven combat effectiveness. However, thanks to Tarkin's statement, we have now learned that they were only 2 times the cost. There are 2 theories I have for why these costs are so low. The first is that the highly standardized logistics stream for a clone army means production costs for equipment and things like food can all be extremely specialized. With only one exact copy of everything needing to be provided, machines can be purpose-built for each to massively streamline costs overall. The second is, as seen in the Star Wars The Clone Wars Nationalizing the Banks arc, the Republic and later Empire provided a lot of basic services to their people, such as electricity and education. These costs may mean that even taking into account the need to raise clones from birth, the costs are similar to the government as what it would cost to get one family of citizens to raise a future conscript. Conscripts by their nature also tend to be less effective soldiers overall historically. However, given the massive recruitment pool of a galaxy-scale civilization and the presence of the Imperial Army to drain any failures into, this issue is likely to be much less pronounced than the Stormtrooper Corps. The real question then becomes whether one clone is worth 2 later Stormtroopers to the Empire. How effective are clones? Clones are born and bred to fight, genetically optimized to be the finest combat force in galactic history. They proved this by successfully winning the Clone Wars, despite being heavily outnumbered, though bear in mind that the entire conflict was orchestrated by the soon-to-be Emperor Palpatine. They also proved their prowess by successfully executing Order 66, the order to purge all Jedi for treason. Jedi were basically super soldiers, able to sense the future, deflect weapons fire, cut through almost any material with their lightsabers, and perform superhuman feats of strength and speed. Despite this, it is fair to say well over 90% of the Jedi in the galaxy were successfully executed by the clones during Order 66. Clones also age quickly, giving a large elite force within 9 years instead of the 18 years plus training required for a normal human. Though this can cut the useful lifespan of their service in half, clones that know no other life would likely serve much longer, and most soldiers rarely serve more than 20 years without gaining enough rank to be taken off the front lines regardless. With their inhibitor chips active, clones seem to have lost much of the spark of creativity and personality that they had prior to the activation. Conversely, they also gained a much more brutal efficiency than they had before, and absolute fanatical loyalty to the Empire. For the Empire, this might actually be a benefit, not a detriment, given the rigid command structure and much more brutal nature of the Empire. What about conscript stormtroopers then? Despite the extremely dark nature of the Empire, they never lacked for manpower. Given the more policing-focused nature of many of the day-to-day activities of stormtroopers, conscripts with their armor and much more powerful weaponry than the average citizen had access to, can provide the numbers that are needed to enforce this top-down police state. At a 2-to-1 advantage of numbers, they can physically be many more places than clones ever could be. The large number of recruits to select from also means that while quality would on average certainly be lower than a clone, they would be more than fit enough for the average purpose of the Empire. This also means that the only time spent to recruit them is their training time. Since they would already be of age to fight, a much more rapid expansion is achievable time-wise, if not financially at least. So are the clones twice as effective as conscripts? I believe the answer is unequivocally yes. In Star Wars Rebels, we see Captain Rex, an elite even by clone standards, take down dozens of stormtroopers. Even while using stormtrooper equipment and with the accelerated aging of clones making him the equivalent of a mid-50s-year-old human, he was able to easily win those firefights. While the average clone would not be able to perform nearly as well as Rex would, or likely for as long, they would almost certainly be able to accomplish an 2-to-1 average combat kill ratio against conscripted stormtroopers even while using the same gear. This brings us to the next point about numbers, which is that stormtroopers, with the exceptions of scouts anyway, are almost never seen alone in any Star Wars media. There are, at almost all times on screen, at minimum 2 to 4 stormtroopers present whenever they are shown. Despite the increased numbers available for conscripts, these numbers are implied in universe at least to be almost immediately eaten up with increased squad and team sizes. While solo clones are also rare, the situations they are seen in are large set-piece battles, not urban policing actions, where these numbers make much more sense. By having clones, the fire teams and squads of the Stormtrooper Corps could be halved and still maintain their full combat effectiveness, if not more, even within the current operating structure of the Empire. Is there a better operating structure for the Empire then? Yes, there is. By keeping the Stormtrooper Corps clones, the Empire could have the shock troops and police that they want. However, they could also actually further increase many of their own national goals by feeding those conscripts that would have been used for the Stormtrooper Corps into the Imperial Army. The Imperial Army is shown to be much cheaper and seemingly disposable compared to Stormtroopers, with much less armor and care going into their battle plans and attritional meat grinder tactics the seemingly preferred operational environments for its command teams. By having more quality recruits to feed to the army, overall efficiency of the force would increase with no increase of cost, since you could now afford to be much more selective in your army needs due to the flood of quality recruits that would have previously been earmarked for stormtrooper selection. The paranoid Empire would also not need to worry as much about the inhibitor chips activated clones, and could use these clones as commissars to ensure that the Imperial Army fought well, fulfilling both the shock trooper role and ensuring brutally efficient loyalty was enforced wherever the army went. This gives them both the same cost and more efficient manpower in the Imperial Army, while the cost and overall combat effectiveness of the Stormtrooper Corps remains the same. This also solves any rapid expansion questions, since despite the long lead-up time to create a clone, you could just compensate with your more effective Imperial Army in the short term without increasing your overall costs. This model also saves a lot of money in other ways. By freeing up competent, loyal recruits for the army, you can increase the quality of your armor overall. Although AT-ATs in The Empire Strikes Back appear to be piloted by Stormtroopers in modified armor, the AT-STs appear to be manned by Imperial Army troopers. Since both would be conscripted at that point in the timeline, you could either keep the same methodology or hand all armor over to the Imperial Army with no loss in effectiveness and keeping the clones for the more valuable infantry roles they uniquely excel at. This keeps your armor equally effective while optionally providing you more Stormtrooper manpower to use as needed. The Navy is about the only branch that has no real active cost savings that will be seen by this move, but that's about it. The overall conclusion is that given the costs, had the Empire had a more holistic assessment process of their true needs rather than angry sadist hates expensive, they actually could have vastly increased their effective combat power without any increase in costs, and without needing a major cultural shift in either doctrine or overall philosophy either. This is, of course, something that historically has also proven true countless times, with the short-sightedness of accountants often leading to scrambling and even more expenses down the line. However, as with most hindsight-based arguments, the same penny pinching may have also allowed them to survive something they may not have otherwise. Until such a case is demonstrated in Star Wars The Bad Batch, however, the Empire would have been vastly better off with clone Stormtroopers. Thank you for watching, everybody. Again, if you like these videos and would like to see more, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have someone you think would really enjoy seeing this video, please share it with them. While I'd much rather live in a world where content speaks purely for itself, this is not the world of current YouTube, and with this type of niche content, the only way for people that would ever enjoy watching it to actually see it is if viewers like you engage and share it. Thank you for watching.